We have common interests in the history of slavery in the Atlantic world, and she approaches it from the anthropological and archaeological perspective, and I, of course, examine the historical perspective. And we just thought it would be really interesting to blend those perspectives and teach a class that considered slavery in the Atlantic world and Black resistance in particular. The name of the class is The Roots of Hamilton, Relics of Resistance in the Black Atlantic World.
We decided to teach this class through the eyes of Hamilton because he is one that was actually born in the Caribbean and then migrated to the United States to get his education and then form a lot of his ideas about revolution and theory. But the background to his life starts in the Caribbean. But we're seeing this whole journey from the Caribbean to the United States through his eyes.
Well, we'll start with a brief biography of Alexander Hamilton because, let's be honest, so many young people are enthralled with his life right now because of the famous musical. So we'll use that as an entryway into life in the Caribbean, but we're going to add the context of slave daily life and how that sort of daily grind that existed in the Caribbean compared with the living situations and the families and social and cultural forms in the United States. We think one of the best ways to truly absorb and understand history and archaeology is to then experience the places in which this history occurred. And so the idea of taking students to St. Croix made perfect sense.
People normally think of slavery in terms of cotton plantations, large southern rural plantations, but they don't think about urban Caribbean life. What does that actually look like, and what would enslavement look like in those terms? We talked about which area was, I guess, more apt to resistance, the Caribbean or the United States, and the different forms of resistance, not just mass rebellion, but also poisoning, running away. And so we talked about building a course around this idea of resistance, and then Hamilton naturally came up from that because this one man could encapsulate this Caribbean and American world together and living during the time of revolution. Placing students in that kind of environment where they, first of all, wouldn't even normally think of enslavement in those kind of terms, but to actually feel and touch and look at the objects that we're recovering from the ground, that's something that students don't even get to see. But when we're developing this course, we want to focus on the real diversity of the African diaspora and focusing on this larger Atlantic world and what that world actually looks like. So we're trying to dive in and just dispel myths about slavery and about any sort of typical slave experience, because that doesn't exist.